In the realm of scientific research, few moments are as pivotal and potentially transformative as when measurements or experimental data unequivocally defy established theories, cherished models, underlying assumptions, or even the most brilliant imaginative leaps. Far from being a setback, this discrepancy often signals a critical, invaluable opportunity for advancing knowledge. Such moments can reveal profound gaps in current understanding, expose the inherent limitations of existing models, or even demonstrate the urgent need for entirely new theoretical frameworks to explain observed phenomena. This section explores how each of these intellectual constructs is impacted when confronted with contradictory empirical data and outlines the typical responses of researchers in such illuminating circumstances. When measurement defies theories. What it means. Theories represent broad, well-validated frameworks designed to explain fundamental natural phenomena. When meticulous measurements directly contradict a seemingly well-established theory, it sends a powerful signal. This suggests that the theory might be incomplete, perhaps limited to specific conditions beyond which it breaks down, or, in rare and momentous cases, fundamentally incorrect in the context of the new data. History is replete with such transformative moments. For example, the birth of quantum mechanics was a direct response to the inability of classical physics to explain the perplexing behavior of particles at very small scales, where existing theories simply couldn't account for observed phenomena. Response. The scientific community's response to such a challenge is multifaceted. The first step is typically re-evaluation. Researchers must meticulously re-examine the theory's foundational assumptions and scrutinize its applicability to the exact experimental conditions under which the contradictory data emerged. Sometimes the theory doesn't need to be discarded entirely. Instead, it can undergo refinement, being modified or expanded to account for the new observations, leading to a more nuanced and accurate theoretical construct. In truly rare but revolutionary instances, such profound contradictions can precipitate a complete paradigm shift, a term famously coined by philosopher Thomas Kuhn. Here, the old theoretical framework is entirely superseded and replaced by a new one that provides a superior and more comprehensive explanation of the observations, fundamentally reshaping the understanding of a domain. Example. A classic illustration of measurement defying theory is the rise of Einstein's theory of relativity. Newtonian mechanics, which had brilliantly explained motion and gravity for centuries, utterly failed to explain the behavior of objects at very high speeds, approaching the speed of light. Crucial measurements, particularly from astronomical observations, consistently contradicted Newton's predictions. This profound discrepancy necessitated a major revision in physics, culminating in Einstein's revolutionary theories of special and general relativity, which provided a more accurate and more comprehensive description of space, time, gravity, and motion at all scales. When measurement defies models. What it means. Models are, by their very nature, simplified representations of reality, often built upon underlying theories. Therefore, when a model fails to accurately predict experimental results, it typically indicates that the model either lacks certain critical details, oversimplifies real-world complexities, or relies on assumptions that are incorrect or too broad for the specific scenario. This mismatch can arise from various factors, including computational limitations, inaccurate or incomplete assumptions embedded within the model, or the influence of unknown factors that the current model simply doesn't account for. Response. The process of reconciliation usually begins with model revision. Researchers often start by meticulously tweaking the model's parameters, incrementally improving its accuracy by incorporating missing variables or refining the problematic assumptions that underpinned its construction. It's also vital to conduct testing of limitations. It might be the case that the model is only valid under a specific range of conditions. If so, the model is not discarded, but revised or clearly qualified to apply only within its defined valid range. If the model consistently fails across many different scenarios, despite attempts at revision, it may necessitate the development of new models, potentially incorporating new theoretical ideas or leveraging more advanced computational methods to capture the unexplained phenomena. In my first PhD project, I encountered a direct instance of measurements defying existing models. I found that the equivalent circuit model for transformer windings, as presented in the IEEE standard and even in my supervisor's own publications, could not adequately explain the frequency response analysis (FRA) measurement data. This clear discrepancy prompted me to replace the existing equivalent circuit model with a novel one, which I developed using a transfer function derived directly from the FRA measurement data. This new model provided significantly more accurate predictions and led to a deeper, more robust understanding of FRA technology for transformer diagnostics. When measurement defies assumptions, what it means. Assumptions are fundamental simplifications or approximations that researchers consciously or unconsciously employ to make a theory or model more manageable and tractable. When measurements directly defy these assumptions, it strongly suggests that the simplifications made were inappropriate for the given context, or that the real-world behavior is far more complex than initially assumed. This can expose blind spots in initial conceptualizations. Response. The initial and crucial step is revisiting assumptions to pinpoint precisely which ones are problematic. For example, if an experiment assumed that temperature remains constant, but unexpected variations in results correlate with temperature shifts, then that assumption clearly needs revision. This often leads to incorporating complexity into the model, where researchers relax or refine the problematic assumptions, thereby introducing more realistic details. In some cases, completely new assumptions must be formulated, directly based on the empirical data, which can lead to more accurate or nuanced models that better reflect reality. Example: skin effect in conductors. Assumption. A common simplification in introductory electrical engineering is the assumption that electrical current is uniformly distributed across the cross-section of a conductor. This assumption greatly simplifies analysis and calculations. However, when high-frequency alternating current, AC, flows through a conductor, precise measurements reveal a striking phenomenon. The current density is significantly higher near the surface of the conductor, with minimal current flowing through its core. This phenomenon is known as the skin effect, and it directly defies the initial assumption of uniform current distribution. Impact. The discovery and understanding of the skin effect have profound implications for designs in power transmission, high-frequency circuits, and electromagnetics. Engineers must actively account for this non-uniform distribution when designing conductors for high-frequency applications, as it critically affects parameters like effective resistance, power losses leading to heating, and overall circuit efficiency. This example powerfully demonstrates how real-world measurements can reveal phenomena that contradict commonly held assumptions, compelling the development of new theories, refined models, and necessary design adjustments. When measurement defies imagination. What it means. Imagination is the wellspring of scientific creativity, allowing scientists to conceptualize potential explanations, novel hypotheses, or entirely new models for phenomena, particularly in uncharted territory. When measurements directly defy these imaginative ideas or speculative hypotheses, it indicates that the creative leap, while valuable in its conception, was incorrect or incomplete in its predictive power. This is especially common when researchers are exploring entirely new or uncharted domains where little empirical data exists. While imagination is absolutely vital for groundbreaking scientific discoveries, it must always, ultimately, be rigorously grounded in experimental rigor. Response. When failed hypotheses are disproven, it typically leads to refined imaginative thinking. Failed hypotheses encourage researchers to approach the problem differently, fostering new creative avenues that are better aligned with the emerging experimental data. This can also lead to the exploration of alternatives, where contradictory measurements inspire researchers to generate entirely new creative directions or formulate alternative hypotheses that might better explain the observations. Crucially, it cultivates humility and adaptability within the scientific mindset. Scientists must possess the willingness to let go of cherished imaginative concepts when they are empirically disproven, recognizing that creativity, while essential, must always be balanced with unwavering empirical rigor. Example: early conceptualizations of the atom illustrate this perfectly. J.J. Thomson's plum pudding model, for instance, was an imaginative idea that posited electrons were simply distributed like plums within a positively charged soup. However, when Rutherford's groundbreaking gold foil experiment yielded unexpected results, most alpha particles passed straight through, but a small fraction was deflected at very large angles, even backward. This directly defied Thomson's imaginative model. The plum pudding concept was subsequently discarded and replaced by Rutherford's more accurate nuclear model of the atom, where a dense, positively charged nucleus occupies a tiny volume with electrons orbiting it. General process of reconciliation. When measurements defy theories, models, assumptions, or imagination, researchers engage in a systematic and rigorous process to reconcile the discrepancies and advance understanding. Analyze data for errors. The very first and most crucial step is to meticulously rule out measurement errors. This involves checking for incorrect equipment calibration, potential human error during data collection, or uncontrolled environmental factors that might have skewed the data. Data integrity is paramount. Revisit assumptions. If the data is deemed reliable, researchers then thoroughly examine their underlying assumptions. Are they still valid under the specific conditions of the experiment? If not, these assumptions are revised or replaced to account for the new findings, leading to a more realistic conceptualization. Refine models. If assumptions are confirmed or successfully revised, the next step is to refine or extend the existing model to better match the observed data. This may involve incorporating new variables that were previously omitted, adjusting existing parameters, or employing more complex equations to capture the observed behavior. Challenge or modify theories. If the model cannot be adequately adjusted to align with the data despite rigorous attempts, it may then become necessary to revisit the underlying theory itself. Theories are more difficult to change due to their broad explanatory power and extensive validation, but they must evolve when faced with overwhelming and consistent contradictory empirical evidence. Use imagination to explore new ideas. In those rare but profound cases where existing frameworks completely fail to explain the new data, researchers must leverage their imagination to think creatively and propose entirely new theories or models. This often involves thinking outside established paradigms, daring to conceive of radically different explanations for observed phenomena. 6. Impact on scientific progress. The moments when measurements defy established ideas are not crises, but rather catalysts. They often signal an unparalleled opportunity for significant scientific advancement. Advancing knowledge. These moments of contradiction are the very engine that drives inquiry and pushes the boundaries of human understanding, leading directly to new discoveries or the significant refinement of existing knowledge. Encouraging innovation. Discrepancies between theoretical predictions and empirical observation powerfully encourage researchers to innovate, whether by developing more sophisticated measurement techniques, constructing more robust and predictive models, or, most profoundly, by formulating new theoretical frameworks that better encompass reality. Fostering critical thinking. Such challenges compel researchers to apply rigorous critical thinking to assess precisely where the fault lies, whether in the data collection process, the underlying assumptions, or the fundamental theory itself. This iterative process deepens understanding, sharpens analytical skills, and cultivates intellectual humility. Conclusion.
When measurements defy theories, models, assumptions, or imagination, it should be seen as an invaluable moment in scientific research. It presents not only the possibility of refining existing knowledge, but also the exhilarating potential for challenging long-held beliefs and fundamentally reshaping our understanding of the world. While theories and models guide our inquiry, they are never infallible. Empirical data plays the ultimate, decisive role in validating or refuting ideas, ensuring that scientific progress remains firmly grounded in observable reality. The dynamic tension between established knowledge and new, sometimes contradictory findings is the dynamic engine that ceaselessly drives scientific evolution, sparking both profound innovation and transformative discovery. I am eager to benchmark my progress against the wider UK doctoral community. To that end, I am issuing a formal challenge to all UK-based PhD students across any research discipline. I will award £1,000 to any student who can demonstrate the publication of 3 peer-reviewed journal papers derived directly from their first-year annual report. This offer constitutes a legally binding unilateral contract under UK law. Should you meet or exceed this performance benchmark, I am committed to transferring the funds to your account.